Theresa May refuses to rule out tax rises if she wins the general election. As the leaders hit the local campaign trail, speculation rises that the Prime Minister could abandon Tory promises, while Jeremy Corbyn says those with the broadest shoulders should pay more. Also tonight, amazing scenes in tennis as Britain's Joanna Konta exits in tears but comes back to win. And a minute's applause at Wembley for former England footballer Ugo Ehiogu.
This is ITV News with Lucrezia Millarini.
Good evening. The row over possible future tax rises topped the election agenda today, with Theresa May refusing to rule them out if she and the Conservatives win the general election. Jeremy Corbyn also hinted at tax rises, but only for those with, as he said, the broadest shoulders. From the campaign trail, our political correspondent Libby Vina.
Good morning. Yes, there's an election on for sure. Even when you're trying to mow the lawn, you never quite know who might turn up asking for your vote. This pensioner in Dudley somewhat taken aback to find that among those canvassing her today, the Prime Minister.
I'm fine, thank you.
In a speech later, she urged people to back her again.
Give me the mandate to fight for Britain and give me the mandate to deliver for Britain.
But on whether taxes might have to rise because of uncertainty over Brexit, she repeatedly refused to be drawn.
That's the choice: lower taxes under the Conservatives or higher taxes under Labour.
But you do need to retain the flexibility. You need to retain the flexibility. Isn't that the case? You are not ruling out all forms of tax rises.
What I'm saying, Libby, is that when people come to vote, they will have a choice between two parties, between, as I say, the strong and stable leadership that will be in the national interest, doing the right thing for Britain under the Conservatives, or a weak and unstable coalition of chaos led by Jeremy Corbyn.
Failing to rule out tax rises after the general election might seem like a high-risk strategy, given some of today's newspaper headlines. But Theresa May appears confident enough of her core vote not to allow herself to get boxed in.
Today is Flying Start Saturday in our general election campaign. We're getting 1 million leaflets delivered all over the country.
Labour's Jeremy Corbyn, campaigning in the northwest, was also pressed on the issue of whether he thought taxes should go up for working people.
We will produce our manifesto very soon, and you will see all the details in that. But I tell you this, our tax burdens will not fall on those on low incomes. Our tax burdens will not fall there. They will fall on those with the broadest shoulders who can bear the greatest burden.
But there's still confusion as to who exactly would pay more under Labour. Pressure growing for both main parties to clarify where they stand.
Libby, it is unusual for the Tories to hint at tax rises, isn't it?
It is unusual, but the fact is that the so-called tax lock in the 2015 election manifesto is widely blamed for that embarrassing U-turn in the budget last month over national insurance. And Philip Hammond, the Chancellor, hinted yesterday that he wanted more flexibility if the Conservatives win the general election. For now, Theresa May, the Prime Minister, seems happy to go along with that. Now, it has to be said that the manifesto hasn't been published. That could change. But it also is worth pointing out that she does have a 20-point lead, so it could be a sign of her confidence that she could risk not ruling out tax rises.
All right, Libby Vina, thank you. The new army in Afghanistan has suffered one of its most fatal attacks ever. Taliban militants disguised in uniforms launched a gun and suicide attack at a base in the north of the country near the city of Mazar-e-Sharif. Angus Walker reports.
With at least 140 soldiers believed to have been killed by the Taliban, this is the deadliest attack ever on an Afghan military base. Militants wearing army uniforms managed to get inside this compound and opened fire on unarmed soldiers. With survivors fleeing from the base during the attack, the sound of gunfire could still be heard. This man says the fighting started near one of the gates of the base and he saw 5 attackers. Dozens were wounded and are being treated in the local hospital. The Afghan president has described the Taliban as cowards. This soldier says the fighters used army vehicles and drove through several checkpoints before targeting troops leaving a mosque. This is the second large-scale Taliban operation in as many months. In early March, militants launched a brutal assault on staff and patients using guns and knives at the main military hospital in the Afghan capital, Kabul, killing around 50 people. Government ministers say tomorrow will be a day of national mourning after this latest attack on security forces. Angus Walker, ITV News.
France goes to the polls tomorrow in the first round of presidential elections. In Paris, tensions remain high and security tight following last Thursday's attack in which a policeman died. Today, there was a public show of solidarity for the police over their loss. Our Europe editor, James Mates, is there for us tonight. James, what's the mood there?
Great anticipation. Obviously, the polls open in just a few hours. In fact, in some of France's overseas territories, they have already opened. The whole thing, of course, in the shadow of that attack on Thursday night, which killed a policeman just a few hundred yards from here. As you mentioned there, many of the wives and girlfriends of police officers in Paris demonstrated down by the Eiffel Tower today, demanding more support for those whose job it is to keep this country safe, particularly at this election time. And security tomorrow obviously will be both tight and highly visible. The poll's still suggesting it's going to be unbelievably close. The aim tomorrow of all the candidates is to come in the top two, who then go ahead into a head-to-head runoff in 2 weeks' time. The polling gap between the top four is only about 4%, 1 till 4th. That's within the margin of error. Any two of those four could very easily make it into that final round.
All right, James Mates in Paris, thank you. There have been violent scuffles in Cologne as the far-right Alternative for Germany party holds its party conference. Up to 50,000 protesters are thought to be in the city, and many spent the day trying to block delegates from entering the conference venue as thousands of police fought to keep order. And a ferry has been caught on video slamming into a breakwater in the Canary Islands. 13 people were injured. The ferry company says the accident was caused by the boat losing electrical power as it was leaving Las Palmas on the island of Gran Canaria last night. There were amazing scenes in tennis today during the match between Britain and Romania. British number one, Joanna Konta, broke down in tears and play had to be suspended after an outburst by the captain and former world number one, Ilie Nastase. Will Mott has the full story.
In tears in the middle of a match, Joanna Konta's too upset to continue. Confusion as the British number one is led away as the tie is suspended. Konta had been in control of her Fed Cup match in Romania, but things off-court became less restrained. During the second set, the British team complained of shouting from the crowd before Romanian captain Ilie Nastase had his say.
He just couldn't help himself, could he?
His behaviour courtside enough to get him sent to the stands and then escorted out of the stadium, leaving a teammate to explain to the crowd what had happened and to appeal for calm. And leaving a distraught Konta unable to continue. Half an hour later, she did come back out to win the next 5 games to seal the match and level the tie. No questioning her professionalism, but Nastase's now under investigation and has been banned from returning for the deciding matches tomorrow. Will Mott, ITV News.
The former Giro d'Italia winning cyclist Michele Scarponi has been knocked off his bike and killed while training. The 37-year-old won Italy's biggest race in 2011 and was due to lead his team, Team Astana, in it again this year. They say he was hit by a van while training this morning near his home. Before today's first FA Cup semi-final at Wembley, there was a minute's applause in honour of the former England footballer Ugo Ehiogu, who died on Friday of a heart attack, aged 44. match itself pitted the top two of the Premier League against each other. Early on, Willian curled in a free kick to put Chelsea in front over Tottenham. And a few moments ago, with about half an hour to go, the match was all square at 2-2. And in the semi-final of the Scottish Cup, Aberdeen have beaten the holders Hibernian 3-2 to seal their place in next month's final after taking the lead after just 11 seconds. Aberdeen clinched victory late on when Johnny Hayes' effort was deflected into the net. And that is it. I'll be back with the late news at 10:25. Until then, enjoy your evening. Bye-bye.